my thesis, the whole idea, the concept, is about the idea that after the invention of photography, people's minds changed forever. When you think about your world, take 2 seconds and try to separate yourself from the image. Try to separate yourself from a photograph. Think about a world that does not involve a photograph. You can't. We can't, as a society. We can't function without the photograph. If you're talking about the camera, or you're talking about your snapshots of your family, or you're talking about the computer, all of it comes from the photograph. And that was an invention, just like a lot of other things, just like the computer and the internet. The photograph is an invention. And so my work is about the idea of what happened after that. And when the camera was implemented into society, how that changed the way people thought about the photograph and thought about their family. And all of a sudden you have this massive upload of images of people and places and things that you never could see before. If you had a relative that, say, still lived back in Italy because you were fresh off the boat, you could put a photograph of your brand new child in the mail and you could send it to them on the other side of the world, and that was an amazing thing, and that is an amazing thing. So now we sit here today in 2011, and all of you have a photographic reference of your families, of your lives. You have videos of when you were children, and you get to see them, and you get to play them back and relive them. Every time you think about a memory, you're viewing something in your mind, you're playing it back. It's a video, it's a photograph. Even if you're talking to somebody on the phone and you have a recollection of that, it may be audio, but when you were talking to them on the phone, you had an image of them in your mind because you always are using this frame. My work is all multiple exposures in camera. And what I'm doing in these different bodies of work, I call them veins within the body. So my entire body of work is 20 images, but the bodies are all different. So the series that you're seeing going right now is a silver gelatin print, sepia tone, and there's 7 images in this series. And what's supposed to be happening is you're supposed to be walking into a space, or walking into a space in your mind, or viewing these images and imagining yourself in this space and reliving a moment. Maybe it's not something that actually happened, maybe it's not truth, but it's still a moment that you're reliving. And, you know, it's supposed to be this kind of, I don't want to say spiritual, because spiritual is a word that people don't really like to use. I want to say these traces of time, these traces of places, these traces of moments, if it is spiritual, mental, emotional. So I'm trying to encapsulate this idea of this body, this thing. So this series, like I said, is sepia tone silver gelatin print, and each series is different. Each series looks different. So the things that you saw before, the very first images on the slideshow, those were calotypes. They are the very first photographic process by William Henry Fox Talbot. That's a negative-positive process. For those of you French people, yes, Daguerre also has a process, same time, same era, but it was the first negative-positive process. And FIRSCA last summer helped me be able to do research on this process. And so I created 4 calotypes that were done in the original process. I mixed all my raw chemistry, I coded my papers, I did it all myself, and it was a great experience, and I really thank FIRSCA for that. Like I said, these are silver gelatin prints, and then the next series that's coming up right after this is a series that I did in Italy. And when I was first thinking about this project, and those of you who saw my FIRSCA presentation last summer, my whole thesis has changed. Everything about this has changed. Because at first I was like, you know, I'm photographing ghosts, and it's all about this creepy feeling, and it's all about how I'm fighting the whole idea that photography isn't an art, and I really want to represent how photography can depict something that isn't just reality. But I went to Italy, and I studied there for a semester, and I had a group of 2 professors that were wonderful. And I studied a lot of art history, and one of my professors said something to me. She said, photography is the only artistic process that has a direct chemical link between the paper and reality. You can't escape it. You're not going to get away from it. It is literally depicting the truth. So why am I fighting the idea of depicting the truth? Why don't I harness it, grab a hold of it, and run with it? So that's what I decided to do. And these images I took of myself because I didn't know a lot of people, I didn't have a lot of friends, and so they're my first self-portraits. And when I got these back, got them back after I developed them and looked at them, I realized that these images were a complete and perfect representation of how I felt in that space, in that place. I got there and I had a freak out. I was like, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna make it into grad school. I'm gonna panic, like I can't work on the processes I need to, and that was not what I needed to be doing. I needed to be calming down and realizing what was happening around me. And what was happening around me was those images, and the idea that, it was like I couldn't move forward and I couldn't move back. And I had a critique with my advisor there, and I said to him, I said, these images, they're not ghosts. They're starting to be graceful. It's like they're a living memory. It's like they're a re-representation of the truth, of what I'm doing, of where I'm at. And so that's when this whole idea of memory started with me. These colored images are actually kind of really special. They are wet colored prints, sea prints, and they were taken in an abandoned location in Albion. And in this particular project, what I was working on was the idea that we have digital photography now, and in Photoshop there's layers. You can add stuff on top of your digital image. But instead of doing that, what I wanted to do was I wanted to go back into the darkroom and add stuff like analog. So what I would do is I would take my photograph and then I would take a piece of glass and put things on it, and I would scratch my emulsion on my negatives, and I would sometimes hold up a barn window over top of the paper. And so I was getting these really bizarre results. And so that's what this color series is about. So like I said, it embodies that space, that bright 60s color in this drive-in theater that's decaying and falling apart. And so that was that vein. So like I said, every vein has a different aesthetic aspect that speaks to its personal voice, its personal memory. The images that you're seeing right now is when I got back from Italy and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is my thesis. Here's what I have. It's all about memory. Come inside my mind and see what I've experienced. And my advisors were like, okay, this is good, but maybe you need to think about making work that really speaks to the idea of memory, that really speaks about what you're trying to say. And so, I did a little thinking, and I went to my grandparents' house, and they were like, and I was like, do you have any negatives that I could print? And she's like, yeah, I got this box. My grandma was like, yeah, I got this box. And I'm like, okay. So I took this giant box of negatives, and I started scanning them in. And before I knew it, I had 1,500 images scanned into the computer, which, let me tell you, it took 3 months, and it was kind of a pain. But I looked at this giant folder of images and realized that I had a complete depiction of my mother's life, from when her parents were married all the way until I was 6. And I was like, that's incredible. Before photography, we didn't have that. We couldn't have that. It was impossible. And so what I decided to do was speak to the idea of photography by creating these contact sheets that you would pin on the wall, like you're pinning them up in the studio. And you would see this entire wall of contact sheets, and they move chronologically. So what you're seeing right now is a grid pattern, and the top set and the bottom set, these are set up like you would display them if you laid them down. So I'm sorry, that might be a little confusing to you, but in the gallery you see them, and they run chronologically across the wall, and you're literally going from when my grandparents got married until I was about 6 or 7 years old. And if you were to play these in fast motion, it would literally be like rolled film. You'd be watching a movie in time. You'd be seeing time, and you didn't have that before photography was invented. And that's what my whole idea is about, is like memory and concepts of time and how you can now see time. And we're taking a scalpel to time every single time you take a photograph, and how amazing that is. So these are going to continue to run through. I will start saying thank you now because there's a long thank you list that I need to make. Art is different than I think anything else because I'm telling you it takes a village. I have to thank so many people. I want to start first off by thanking my mother. If it wasn't for my mother, I wouldn't be here today, people. I would also like to thank my grandparents for being always there for me no matter what, moving me in and out, providing money when I needed to still be in Albion. everything. I would like to thank my 2 advisors, Ann Barber and Gary Wall. You guys have been my rocks. And Macaulay, you have been there for me, and I know that it has been sketchy because you're busy and I'm busy, but if you were on this committee this semester, I don't know what I would do. I would also like to thank FIRSCA, because without FIRSCA, my life would not be possible. These projects would not be possible. You guys funded my frames for my thesis. There was no way my family could afford that. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank all of my models, every person in all of those images. Ann Byer, my best friend who couldn't be here today, she was photographed so many times, and she has been drug around for hours and hours on end. And everybody else who helped me with my project. I'd also like to thank my Aunt John and Uncle Barb for providing the frames for my project. They gave me everything it cost. That was wonderful. Anybody who I missed, I'm really sorry. I'll put that slide back up. Here, all your names are on there, but thank you so much, everybody, for supporting me. And any questions? Okay, that was emotional. Do I have any questions? Anything at all?
What was your favorite process to do?
Oh, color. Definitely color. I know that sounds really bizarre. Some people say that color is the most impossible process, but I loved it. I loved learning about it. I loved learning about the way it works. I also really enjoyed the calotype process. I enjoyed knowing exactly what chemistry was in my photographs. It wasn't like taking a can of orange juice out of the freezer and mixing it up and adding some water. I literally took chemicals that Dave Carey provided me. Thank you so much, Dave. And I mixed them, and I coated all my own paper. That was amazing. Learning that, knowing where it came from, knowing the beginning of photography, that was the best thing. That was the best present anyone could ever give to me. Is there anything else? Gary?
Is there some place where we can see the contact sheets?
Yes! Sorry, I completely forgot about that. If anyone's supposed to see my work in person, you should go to the Bobbitt Gallery. All my stuff is up, along with the rest of our senior show. The work is amazing. Take 5 minutes, walk over there. It's open now. You guys will enjoy it. It's not a waste of your time. Is there anything else? Oh, and I'd also like to thank Sue Havens. She was on the slide. I didn't get a chance to say that, but Sue deals with a lot of craziness in the art department all the time, and thank you, Sue, for always being there for us. Is there anything else?